What is going on today? We're going to talk about this heat wave moving into the plains and out east, followed by potentially a nice snowstorm for portions of the plains and Midwest. I also want to go over the expected snowfall totals over the next 10 to 14 days. I want to talk about our tropospheric polar vortex because we do see some disruption as we move through January, especially with potentially a large Alaskan ridge forming. And while the beginning of January looks warm out east, there are signals that the entire country could see a significant cool down as we enter the second half of January. It's January 5th, 2026. Let's get into the weather updates. Starting with our live radar, not much going on. We have a nice ridge over the plains and out towards the southeast, so no precipitation falling there. We do have a storm system moving towards the northeast. This is going to drop a little bit of snow in states like New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, maybe a little bit in Maine. And then we have some precipitation obviously moving through the northern Rockies, a little bit in the central Rockies, and a nice storm system moving into central to northern California. You can see we have these winter storm warnings through portions of the Cascades and Sierra Nevada as well. Let's take a look at our forecast over the next 7 to 10 days. You can see this clipper system, like I talked about, that's going to be moving into the northeast, not dropping a ton of snow. I think on the high end, some people could see 6 to 8 inches, but for the most part, I think it's going to be under 5 inches of snow. Let's move this forward here. We are warm and dry through portions of the southern plains and out in the southeast as we get into Tuesday and Wednesday likely. Now, as we get into Thursday, we start to see our polar jet collapsing a little bit out west. This is a lot of snowfall for the higher elevations. Still likely rainfall for the low elevations, although we may get cold enough in some of these low elevations for snow as this jet begins to collapse. You can see another storm system moving into the southwest as well as we get into Thursday morning. Right here, as we get into Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, we could potentially finally be seeing a good amount of snow through the central to southern Rockies here. I know you guys have been waiting for this for quite a while, and we see this low pressure beginning to eject through the plains here. This is going to bring obviously some rainfall into Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas. But what's behind this is interesting because we could see this trough beginning to tilt. We could see a storm system beginning to form, and maybe we have a snowstorm through the plains here. Watch as we get into Friday morning. That first storm system moves off into the northeast, and we start to get kind of a funnel of moisture up from the Gulf through portions of Dixie Alley and the Ohio Valley. We push into Friday evening, and suddenly you can see our trough is beginning to tilt, and we're trying to get a storm system that forms right along this boundary. Now, we're pretty cold out west. We're warm in the southeast, and we still have this funnel of moisture. There is going to be some severe potential here Friday into Saturday. We're going to have to watch as this develops. It really all depends how amplified is this trough. How much does this trough try to dig and tilt and pull this moisture and create this instability out ahead of it? As we move forward in time here through Saturday, you can see we start to get a neutrally, maybe negatively, but I think neutrally tilted trough, and we get a nice snowstorm here. Could drop some snow through portions of Kansas, Nebraska, northern Missouri, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin. We'll have to see. It's tough to tell how far south this system wants to go or if it wants to tilt a little bit earlier. And if that happens, the southern portion, you're just rain. This could end up just being a snowstorm for Nebraska, portions of northwestern Iowa, Minnesota. The models are struggling with the timing of this system coming off the Pacific. So let's watch this closely over the next 24 hours because, again, we see where the snow wants to fall right now. This could easily go a little bit farther south, shift a little bit farther north. But depending on when this storm system begins to tilt, begins to intensify, we could end up seeing some significant severe weather Friday into Saturday. So I'll watch this closely as it develops. Pushing through Saturday into Sunday, a lot of cold air begins to dive down into the southeast, and we have potentially some snow flurries through portions of the Ohio Valley, Midwest, and headed out towards the northeast. And now we are dry and warming up in the west. This is as we get into, again, Saturday, Sunday this weekend, we look to dry up out west. Getting into early next week, we see another potential trough trying to dig back down into the southeast. Now, as we get into mid to late January, we do see Canadian GFS and Euro all wanting to throw consistent cold air out east. We saw this pattern potentially setting up for earlier in January, which it didn't lock in for earlier in January. So will this happen? We'll see. I'm not ready to fully commit to this. Like I've said before, we did have some stratospheric polar vortex disruption at the end of December, and you'd expect that lagging effect, that cold air to be pushing down. And you'll see what I'm about to show you. I do expect a little bit of disruption into our tropospheric polar vortex as well. So getting towards the end of the model run, you can see what happens here. Big collapse of cold air and, well, a ton of snow for the states. This is pretty late in the model run, so we're not going to talk about this quite yet, but we'll see. Middle to end of January looks pretty active, pretty cold, and potentially pretty snowy for the States. You can see where the European model wants to put down snow in the next 10 days. Again, once you get 10 days out though, it's pretty hard to forecast local precipitation. Canadian GFS, Euro, all like the potential for a snowstorm through the plains up towards the Great Lakes region, some snow in inner New England, and some good snow through the Rockies. What you're looking at here is our 500 millibar height anomaly map, and in the short term, I'm not too concerned. I do want to show you what happens here at the end of this run. Now, this is the deterministic or operational run of the European. Notice right here, and I'm showing you this because we see this showing up on our other model runs as well. So once you start to get a little consensus, you can take it a little more seriously. We start to get some significant ridging up here in Siberia, Alaska. And what this is going to do is this is going to try to cause some destabilization with our tropospheric polar vortex as this ridging and as these higher heights push up towards the Arctic. Now, this is around January 15th through the 17th, and you can see what's happening at the same time here. A lot of cold air is being forced down into the States. I do find it interesting, even though this is at the end of the run, that we see this across a couple models and that we've been consistently seeing this pattern form. But this significant of a ridge out here over the Pacific, Siberia, Alaska, pushing up towards the Arctic in our troposphere would cause some significant, potentially record-breaking cold down into the States at the end of January. And as we know, the end of January in the Northern Hemisphere is the coldest time of the year. So once again, this is just an operational run, but if there's one thing I'm watching probably closer than anything over the next week, it's if we continue to see this develop, because this could lead to a serious Arctic outbreak in the States, potentially a major snowstorm for someone towards the end of January. So I'll keep my eye on this. Really wanted to point that out to you in this video. Let's quickly take a look at our temperature anomalies over the next 7 to 10 days. You can see all this heat from coast to coast over the next couple of days. Most of us are running 5 to 10 degrees above average. You can see the plains may be running 10 to 20 degrees above average over the next couple of days. We get into Thursday, we get into Friday, we start to see a cool down out west. We have a lot of precipitation falling out here, a lot of moisture moving in off the Pacific, which is helping with this cool down. And then as we get into this weekend, really as we get into later Saturday and Sunday, we finally get that cool down again out east, followed by another brief warm up and some more cool air. We're going to get this kind of push and pull of cold air as we get into the end of this weekend out east and then into the beginning of next week. And then the question is, as we get towards the end of next week and towards next weekend, do we actually see this big cool down from coast to coast, or potentially for the west, just for the east? This could lead to, like I said, some record breaking cold if we were to see it, but this is way at the end of the run. I did quickly want to show you what's going on with our European ensemble. Temperature anomalies, obviously warm up here, you get this push and pull of cold air. But again, look at our ensembles, and this isn't the control run, this is the ensembles. This is all the runs averaged out together. Look at how cold the European ensembles expect it to get towards the 3rd and 4th week of January. Again, this could be significant, and it's not just the European. You can see what happens when we look at the GFS ensembles as well. Warm in the short term, you get towards the 3rd and 4th week of January. This is significant cold for the end of January. Our European weeklies teleconnection has really changed its tune on the Arctic oscillation. You can see the control run wants the Arctic oscillation to stay negative basically throughout the rest of January. So does our ensembles. Taking a look at our NAO, same negative NAO. This suggests a lot of cold air out east and potentially some winter storms out east for the second half of January. Let's go into our GFS extended, and here you go with our NAO. The mean wants to stay negative. You can see though, as we do get towards the end of January, the control run takes it slightly positive, but overall not a bad look if you want some cold air and storminess into the east on the GFS extended. Taking a look at our Arctic oscillation, for the most part negative as well. So continued cold and wintry pattern for the second half of January. How quickly do we transition into that though? Is it January 15th? Is it January 20th? How quickly do we get there? I think that is still up in the air. I appreciate you guys watching this video. If you like this type of content, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. And if you like the video, like the video. I make content like this every day, and I try to live stream every single day to answer all of your weather-related questions. And if you want to join an awesome weather community, the link to my Discord is in the description of all of my YouTube videos and YouTube live streams. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video or the next live stream.